Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you are. And welcome to DelphiCon 2021. And this is my session, which is Move Your UI to the 23rd Century with Delphi and Skia. Engage! All will become clear shortly. Today's presentation by me is going to look at a library called Skia, which is a graphics library from Google, and used in Chrome and Flutter and a few other things as well. And in particular, because we're all Delphi people, we're going to be looking at a library called Skia for Delphi, which actually allows you to use the incredibly powerful Skia graphics library and do some pretty amazing things. And yes, we are going to create our own Starship computer interface, just because we can. As you can see from that little animated GIF there, this is what I've created. It doesn't show any real data, and it's, yes, you know, I normally do things like fluid UI interfaces and semi-transparent sections and stuff like that. But what I really wanted to do was just copy the idea of the LCARS interface for demonstration purposes. And if you're a Star Trek fan, I'm sure you'll recognize things like the Star Trek fonts and the logo and the Klingon typeface there. All very, very exciting. Who am I? Well, my name is Ian Barker. I'm an Embarcadero MVP. I'm sure if you've joined one of our Tea, Coffee and Code sessions, you've come across me before. On Tea, Coffee and Code, we spend a lot of time talking about coding, and today we're actually going to show a little bit of code in this session, just really how to make Skia work. You can find me on about.me/Ian Barker. You can also get to any of my code, which is open source code, part of my private projects, obviously, at GitHub/checkdigits. And you can also find me blogging and editing and commenting on the official Embarcadero blog, which you can find at blogs.embarcadero.com. What is Skia? Well, Skia is one of those things that when you first look at it, it doesn't seem that exciting. It's like, whoa, it's just a graphics library. And it's 2D graphics of that. It's not even three-dimensional, zoomy out game type stuff. They're designed for a very specific purpose. You can find it at skia.org. And as it says here, it's an open source 2D graphics library which provides common APIs that work across a variety of hardware and software platforms. It serves as the graphics engine for Google Chrome and Chromium, and also Chrome OS. So if you've got one of these Chromebooks, in fact, I use a Chromebook quite a lot, 10 hours battery life from a Chromebook, pretty impressive. I remote into my main development machine and do some development like that quite often. It also can be found on Android, Flutter, which is the low-code platform for creating some apps and things like that, Mozilla Firefox, and the Firefox OS, which is obviously not quite as well known. If you can see in the screenshot there, depending on your resolution, it's supported on just about anything that you can shake a stick at. So it's on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Ubuntu, Debian, OpenSUSE, Fedora. Basically, if you've got a computer, you can probably have the Skia graphics library working on it. It's a very interesting set of components, set of technologies, shall we say, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in a second. What is Skia for Delphi? Well, this presentation is specifically about Skia for Delphi. Skia for Delphi is a set of components that are open source and free to install and access. And it's a really well-written library for Skia. What it does is harnesses the power of the Skia system and makes it easy for you to write some code in and harness all the little foibles that Skia can do. Skia is extremely powerful. It does a lot of things you wouldn't necessarily understand. Like, for example, it supports SVGs. You can output with the Skia for Delphi library to PDFs and control sorts of functions of PDFs. It's interesting stuff. For the Skia for Delphi component specifically, They work for Delphi XE6 and later. So if you've got a reasonably recent copy of Delphi, then this is going to work for you. It works for Windows GUI and console apps, so terminal or DOS apps, for XE6 upwards. And if you're using Delphi 10.4 and upwards, including Delphi 11, then you can actually use these components on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, and Linux. It provides a set of components. The main ones you'll see in the little clip screenshot down on the left there. Lottie Animation, which we're going to talk about in a moment. An SK Paintbox, which is a Skia Paintbox area, a bit like the T-Paintbox controls that you're probably familiar with. And quite interestingly as well, a TSK SVG, which is an SVG component that allows you to show SVGs quite easily in your applications. Now, SVG support is more common in Delphi applications. There are plenty of components out there, but some of them got problems. I tried out the Skia SVG components. They worked absolutely fine. It's up to you. There are lots of other ways of doing it, but even if you do nothing else with Skia and you're really missing out, the SVG component itself is very, very useful. I've used it quite heavily in my demo here, just so that you can get some idea of what it does. Great set of components. Now, those components are available via Get It. If you go into Get It and just search for Skia for Delphi, it'll turn up. You can also go to their official website, which is skiafordelphi.org, and go into there and you will see some links to download either the Get It version or the latest up to the cutting edge version from the GitHub. They have a GitHub repository. You can see all the code in there and subscribe to that, and you see all the check-ins. Absolutely great. Now, I'm using the latest version from the GitHub repository directly. Okay, time for a demonstration. So what I thought would be fun would be to take something that's fairly graphical and not a proper interface, and just reproduce it just because we can. And because a lot of my friends and I are Trekkies and love Star Trek, why not try and make a facsimile, shall we say, a fake copy of the Star Trek computer, which is the LCARS interface. Okay, LCARS is just the fictional library computer. You know, the one that Margelle Barrett does the voice for. And what we're really trying to get to is this kind of affair. It's not a very good picture. They do have another one here. I didn't want to do this one because, well, you can see how the graphics work and all the rest of it. But they always have some buttons and some text and stuff like that. And I thought, well, you know what? Let's you know, make a copy of that. And how do we go about that? Well, Skia has some very interesting capabilities. It can do all sorts of weird things, like it can do Bezier curves and shapes, translations and rotations, text rendering. You can do some very cool things with the text rendering, in the sense that you can render the text with outlines. You can render it with a grad fill. You can shade things and apply shaders to things like the fonts and the outlines that you're producing. Very, very interesting stuff. It's about how you build on top of the various basic graphics. I know it doesn't look exciting, but trust me, it does get better. And when I show you a few of the things that we can do, you'll understand what I mean. Now, I've got a Delphi 11 product that I'm running here. This is the enterprise version, but this will work, as far as I'm aware, in all of the versions, Pro and probably Community Edition 10.2 as well. And this is my little, don't want to use the word rip-off, but you get the general gist. My little copy of the LCARS type interface. Okay. And again, we're going for this kind of thing. And what I did was I wanted to make it produce some animations and things like that to make it look like it's doing something. Now, in real life, obviously, your dashboard would pull real data and stuff like that. But life's too short, and this is just a presentation. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time writing code to do graphics and things like that. So if I just hit F9, and after a few seconds, my little interface comes up running. So in the background there, we have our interface. And I've sourced some open source sounds, computer type sounds, and it works. It does stuff. Now, like I say, the data is just random, so don't get too excited. I didn't really want this to be a dashboard that did some real data because, sooner or later it'll get out of date. I've got it playing sounds just because I could, but if I click on this button, it'll turn these sounds off, so it won't actually make sounds whilst I'm talking. Up here, you'll see some of the things that Skia is doing for this app. These lines here are using custom fonts, and so is this line here. And what this font here is an open source font that shows Klingon. I haven't installed that font on my computer. It is actually loading the TrueType font from the drive, from the file. And the same with this rather cool Trek type font. It's also an open source font that emulates the Star Trek main logo, I suppose is the word I'm looking for, logo stuff. And these columns of data here, they're all custom colored. Now, these could be grad filled and stuff like that. And I'm going to show you a Skia demonstration in a moment. It does actually do many, many other things and much more cool interface. But so far, nothing particularly exciting. But what is exciting is, first of all, this graphic here. This graphic here is actually a what's the word I'm looking for? SVG. And if I find where it is, it's this SVG here, which you can't see very well, but it's that SVG. And as you can see in my Delphi program, I'm displaying an SVG, which it's not always that simple out of the box, depending on the version of Delphi you've got and the components you've got installed. You can see this number here is morphing. This is an animation, and I'm going to show you what those animations are in a moment. It's called a Lottie Animation. And these here, is this section here in the middle, is actually a combination of animations that are displaying on top of each other with transparency. And the same with this one here. These are all separate animations. The globe with the satellite going around it, and the radar sweep animation, and this heartbeat detecting life on the planet, or the away team, or the red shirts. If it was red shirt, it would be a flat line, obviously. But the away team heartbeat, these are all animations. And the reason I did it this way is I wanted to show you something that actually is very difficult, or probably impossible, with regular animations. One of the things it's very difficult to do is take an animation and overlay it on top of an animation with transparency. Now, the cool thing about Lottie animations, and I'll show you the links to that in a moment, is that they are basically JSON files. Weird, but true. And when we install these animations in here, it's just a bunch of JSON information that's being pulled into the player, and then it's animating. Because by default the background is transparent, I can overlay these animations on top of each other. And when I overlay them on top of each other, you get a compound animation that looks like that. So what you're seeing here is one animation, which is this sweeping line as it goes upwards and downwards. Okay. Another animation, which is this swirling globe. Okay. And another animation down at the bottom, which is aligned to the bottom of this area, which is the I don't know, I thought of it as a kind of navigation beacon or something like that. Likewise on here, there's one animation in the background of the satellite globe, or Saturn, or whatever we want to call it. This sweep animation, and the heartbeat, and of course the morphing numbers. So very cool, lots of things going on. These are T shapes just because it was easy to do, but I could have spent some time writing some Skia Bezier curves and all sorts of exciting things like that to draw these on. I just did this for the sake of simplicity. I didn't want a lot of code in my app. So if I just close that for a second, we can look at what's going on. So here's my form, and I'm just going to lock the controls for a second because I don't want to move around whilst I'm moving my mouse, because, you know, as these things go, this is what happens. But you can see that I am in the form designer and selecting various forms. If I hit F11 and show the properties, there's a T image. Okay, so in the text, if you recall, where we've got some text playing and being displayed, it's actually being drawn into an image. I'm not using Canvas draw text type methods to do that. I'm using Skia methods. And likewise, this here is the component that I talked about before, which is the Skia SVG image. So if I want to show an SVG, I can literally just get it to double click on here. Whoops. Double click on here and select an SVG. So I click on open and I can select an SVG just as it is, and it will give you some idea of what it looks like. Very cool. Just like a normal image, but it's an SVG and it does scale properly. This is actually scaled to about a quarter of the regular size, I think. This is the most simple animation I have on here, and that is not overlaid anywhere. But all I have is an animation that, again, I just click on open, select the animation, and off I go. Now, I have included these in my repository for this source code, which is available on GitHub. I'll give you a link to it later. But it allows you to load these in and have play with them yourself. But there's a file, a repository of them that I'm going to talk about in a moment called Lottie files. You can go there and get lots and lots of free animations. Okay, they're quite basic line type animations, but they do have others. And once you start playing around with them, you can do all sorts of exciting things. Now, if you look very carefully, you can probably just see the lines for the various animations. And if I go over and look at the structure pane here, you can see if I select the different animations, you can see that they are individually laid on top of each other. Despite the fact they're on top of each other, they are transparent. And so this animation, which is a radar sweep animation, which looks like that, probably quite difficult to see, I'd imagine, is overlaid on top of the planet one, which we will select here and go here, which looks like that. So when they're actually running, I've got the animation that I just happen to of the radar sweep, but I've happened to put the dot nicely on that little ring, so it looks cool. And then it sweeps around in the bounding box. It's just how that animation resizes. I've done exactly the same thing with the scanning animation down here, which is the planetary red line scan that's going up and down, and the warp vector animation, as I called it, and the globe animation. Not very difficult. Now, the other thing is in the text of the source code of the program, what is happening? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I decided to get rid of the caption bar because I didn't really want the oh yes, I turned the sound off. I didn't want the Windows caption bar to ruin the effect. So I got rid of that by turning the borders off, and I'm just testing for an NC test on there. Close that and go back into it again. So basically we override the that message and just say if the point of where the mouse is within the height of that that top shape up here, which is what this is, then will act as if they're dragging on the caption. There's just a non-Skia related little thing that it's doing. Okay. Some of the rest of the code, well, probably the most interesting code is in here. So I have a routine called do space text, because why not? And what that does is define some colors for the text. If we recall it, it shows yellow and white and black text. It then creates a bitmap into which the Skia object is going to draw. And the way that the Skia library works is it provides this new method, Skia draw, for your T bitmap. And we are using an anonymous method. Anonymous method is one of those cool things in the later versions of Delphi. No name for that procedure, obviously, but it's anonymous. And it allows us to actually render that text into there. Now, I do some tricksy stuff so that I get some exciting things happen in the app in terms of what kind of text is appearing. So I wanted the text to be completely random rather than fed from data. You could do a similar thing in your own dashboard by having proper text drawn in, but all I've got is a routine here which generates some random Klingon text. If you want to know where the Klingon text comes from, it is a open source Klingon alphabet, true type font, and I just happen to look it up, and here's the Unicode values for it up here. Do that without, yeah, Unicode values for it. And so I start with that Unicode value and pick a random letter of Klingon, and that generates random Klingon text. Okay, now we're drawing on a Skia paint object. Okay, and we are grabbing the canvas and drawing our random Klingon text using the paint object and the colors from the Skia library. Okay, we now to do that, we actually load in a Klingon font from the folders, and so here are the fonts. Okay, and I've included these again because they are open source and we're free to distribute them. I've included these in the repo as well, just in case you really want to play with Klingon and various Star Trek type stuff. But if I turn on preview pane, it will look odd because it includes Latin text, but if you go for those higher values for the Unicode, then you'll actually get other things. Here's your Star Trek font, and here's the default LCARS font, LCARS being the computer. So drawing text is like drawing on a regular canvas, except you're using the Skia stuff to do it. Now, I'm going to show you another demo in a second which does this, but I could, instead of having a solid fill, I could have a grad fill, and this is one thing you cannot do on a regular canvas. And in the other demo, we'll show how that works. But we could have some text that has a grad fill on it. I'm not doing that. I'm doing a solid grad fill. I can load in the font files and draw all the text by font. It then randomly decides every so often to show red alert, all crew to stations, and if it doesn't do that, then it asks me to report to the bridge, because I think I'm going to get a dressing down from the captain, Jim, whoever he is. And then I draw some text and all the rest of it. So this demo is available. I don't want to go into too much detail because we'll be here for a month of Sundays. But one important thing to notice in here is, first of all, it's not very many lines of code. Okay. And secondly, there is not one single line of code anywhere in here that actually manipulates the animations. It's all automatic. So the only complications I have in here are that you can click on one of the shapes to turn the sounds on and off. And I happen to use a T Media Player control. This is not how you would do this in a real app. You do sound, play sound, SND play sound or something like that, or use some other component to play media player stuff so that you can do it asynchronously. This is just a demo. I just wanted to make it as simple as possible and as obvious as possible so you could see. But those are the only other real complications in here. Most of what you see here is in the do space text routine. And just to remind you, run it. It goes off the screen. and this is what it looks like. So do space text is filling out all of this section here. Turn the sounds off for a second. All of this section here down to where that logo is the T bitmap. These are the animations which are automatically running, and once again they're automatically transparent and drawn on top of each other, so you can build up images and stuff like that. There is a Lottie editor that allows you to create animations of various types. The Skia library does a lot more than that. It allows you to do Bezier curves and lines and graphs and things like that. So, you know, I'm not even scratching the surface here. I just wanted to show something that will attract people's attention for them to go, cool, it does this. Gives you some idea what it can do. And obviously, if I click on this, then the sounds will start playing again in a moment. Any second now. There you go. Perfectly on time. I'm very happy. So that's that demo. Okay. In a second, I'm going to show you the official Skia for Delphi demo so that you can get some more idea of what this library can do. Okay, so that was my little Starship Computer demo. And now we're going to look at the official Skia for Delphi demo. In fact, it's their basic demo, they call it. I've been in touch with the people from Skia for Delphi, the coders who are working on that. And they've got some new things planned, but mysteriously they said to me, but we can't demo it before DelphiCon. So I have an idea of what it is, but they're not quite ready yet. But all I can say is this is an actively developed project, and they've got lots of cool things planned and on the way. Okay, so if we just run this demo, and we will see the basic demo running. Now, what this is based on, in fact, is the Skia graphics engine examples that are on their official website, and they have a number of things on the official Skia website that allow you to get some idea of what their libraries can do. And I'm just going to see if I can pull that up whilst I'm here. Yes, I have it here. So you can see some of the things that the Skia library can do, which I showed you earlier on, like shapes, Bezier curves, and translations and rotations, text rendering, and so forth. Here's the idea of the shaders, or the grad fills, as we would call them in the Delphi world. Don't be put off by the fact these are very simple shapes, because actually it's much more powerful than you could imagine. Trust me, it does a lot more. So let's just look at the basic functionality of what can and can't be done. So the basic thing is the shapes like this, and in fact this is directly pulled from the Skia website, but entirely in Delphi. So get some idea of the fact this is transparent. They've got one of the traditional, you know, checkerboard type transparent background type things. It does Bezier curves, which is very cool. So you can specify a few little points and off you go. Rotations. So this is a basic rectangle, and then you can rotate it through n number of degrees. And then we start to get a little bit more exciting. So on the website, again, their example website, you can see the text looking like this. Right to left text, which is one of the most common things that people ask about, I think, in applications, is how do we do right to left text and stuff like that. But it can support it, and because it supports Unicode, you can show the entire character sets accurately. Paragraph is something that I'm still trying to get my head around a little bit. It allows you to have the text formatted by saying, it's almost like a text extent, and say, how far along here can I go before I wrap the text? So you can artificially set a bounding rectangle, shall we say, of the text. But interesting. Custom font. I can't show that because I have yes, I managed to remove that font. That's a bit annoying. I'll come back to that in a moment. Path effects, discrete paths. Well, you get the general idea of weird paths. Custom paths where it's composed with dashes as the line rendering, and then you can sum those together. So that and that equals this, and then extremely weird kind of stuff comes up as well. I like the shaders. I think they're a good idea. You can do some very exciting stuff, and I'll show you the text in a second. But being able to show SVGs with transparency and properly scaled, which is very important, probably that in itself alone is very, very useful to people who are using Delphi and using this library. Yes, it is the Delphi SVG. It's the old version. It doesn't have the cool 3D lines in the background, but hey, it works. And the other thing you do is do a conversion of an SVG to a PDF. So this, as you can see across the top here, is a PDF document, and this is from an SVG image. It includes code in there to convert to an SVG. And the other thing as well are the whoops, I managed to break that as well. The animations, the Lottie animations. So these are all pulled from the Lottie files site, and I've then reused that code in my own demos, but that's what it looks like. And then the other weird thing that it does is, for those of you that are Telegram users, the Telegram communications app, in Telegram you can have a sticker, okay, and those have got an extension of .tgs, Telegram graphics sticker, and it's apparently compatible with Lottie. Now, I don't use Telegram very often, and you know, I don't know for certain that this is a Telegram sticker, but I'm guessing it is. Very cool. So let's take a look at the code behind the scenes and also show you those fonts working properly. Okay, so here's the example app. Again, looks just like I showed you. It's very well written, and it looks at various assets on the disk. I forgot to mention, but I really shouldn't have done, and this is the problem. This library's got so many different features that you forget about. It also allows you to display WebP graphics. And for those of you that know, WebP is an alternative to things like JPEG. It's got better quality and just works better, full stop. Very interesting piece of code that as an example anyway. But if we just go into the previewer, we've got a view Lottie animation. That's it. That's all it does to show a Lottie animation. It's really that simple. And same with the bitmap. To be able to show the bitmap, it does a little bit of sizing to make sure it fits. But apart from that, there's nothing particularly special. So when we run the code, we'll go back and show that text that I messed up. But as you can see here, this is something you cannot easily do with any other Delphi component, and that is have weird effects on text. Now, they've done a little rainbow diagonal left to right rendering on the graphic, but you could do anything you wanted. You could even do a Star Wars scroller or something like that. And as you can see here, they've also got a custom font for Steve Jobs to show his signature type thing and say it's a quote from him. But a very interesting system, I think. So we just look at the Skia for Delphi site. Go here, skiafordelphi.org, and you can download it, or you can go to the GitHub repository, and everything you could ever want to know is in there, including the example and better descriptions and more full descriptions that we can fit into a DelphiCon session. But how to draw various things, and lots of little bite-sized samples to show you how to do it. I know that this demo has only really scratched the surface of what you can do, but it really, you know, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. It's very fast, it's very efficient, it works completely cross-platform. These are building blocks that you can go off and build some quite sophisticated applications from. There's the WebP I was talking about. Converting a PNG, which is kind of vupanda.png, to a WebP or a JPEG is literally 2 lines of code. How cool is that? I mean, it's absolutely amazing to do that, and I really cannot say enough good things about this library. Jim McKeith introduced me to this library, and at first I'm like, 2D graphics library, but the more I start to use it, the more I realize what it was actually capable of doing, and it's a lot. Okay, so I've only really touched the surface of what can be done, and if you use it for nothing else, I definitely recommend looking at the Skia for Delphi for SVG components. The main Skia website, and just remember, it's used by absolutely everything you could imagine out there, Chrome and all sorts of exciting things for their graphics rendering. Go to the main Skia website, skia.org. The Skia for Delphi components are available at the link there, Skia for Delphi. Actually, you can go to the skiafordelphi.org website. So it's a little bit of a wrong link there, but we'll correct that later. MySpace computer example, the one that you just saw, is there. And finally, Lottie files. So what I want to do is just briefly talk about Lottie Animation and what Lottie Animation actually is. Let me pull this over here for a second. A Lottie Animation is the animations that you saw when we were running my app earlier on with the spinning globes and all the rest of it. And it literally is a JSON file, and it's a very simple system for being able to display these animations. But as I said before, the number one thing is the ability to compound these images on top of each other, so that you can build up complex animations with transparency, which is very difficult to do under any other circumstances. So you could have some text on there and have some kind of cool animation that came down the side or something like that. It's up for you. Now, up to you. But the question is, where would I get those from? Well, the good news is there's a massive, great big site called lottiefiles.com that contains a lot of these animations all ready to go. Okay, and there's a ton of them. So if we pick, for example, let's choose, let's be careful, but let's choose Rocket. They're all safe for work type animations, by the way, just in case. But as you can see, there's all sorts of rocket animations. There are some that you can pay for, which are more complicated, but the ones that I use are all open source and free. If I choose globe, let's see how many globe ones there are. Yeah, there's all sorts. There was one very cool one that I found, which actually wouldn't work with the Skia for Delphi apps. It was like a horizon thing. Yeah, you can get weird animations like this, which are much more high quality. I can't remember what the horizon one was called, but that's a shame. Yeah, here we go. See if it will show the one that I was looking at. I clicked on like whilst I was doing. Oh, it was this one. Yeah, this is a very cool animation. It probably doesn't show up very well on the streaming platform, but there is some stars, a group of stars that are going down there. This is a very big, wide PNG in the background. I think that may be the reason why I couldn't get it to work inside the Skia for Delphi applications. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, and you can favorite them and download them and get them for free and all sorts of things. You'll notice, by the way, that this is the heart logo from my little executable, my demo that I did. And you'll notice the color's different. The reason is that you can go into these things and you can say, okay, well, I'll have a blue background or I'll have a red background, and it re-renders it on the fly. And you can also go further than that and say, okay, well, you know what? I want to do a little bit more than that. I want to have an orange heartbeat, and I want to have a blue line like that. And the more layers you've got in here, obviously, the longer it takes to re-render it and all the rest of it. But that really is quite how it works. It's absolutely incredible. I really like it. I think it's great. The more I've used it, the more I've realized that you can do all sorts of things with it. Export it to an animated GIF or something like that. You can put these on your web pages, put them in your PowerPoint presentations like I'm using, and see all sorts of wonderful things going on. So anyway, Lottie files, very, very good. The same with the SVGs. Obviously, you can go and go to various sites and get SVGs. And that pretty much concludes things for this demo. I've only really scratched the surface of it. I'm sure there will be some questions. And I may do a couple of blog articles on this as well, because I'm keen to try and explore the idea of using some Bezier curves to do graphs and things like that, work across platform. And there are some nice graphing libraries, but also being able to use those animations to create some quite interesting depth to user interfaces and stuff like that. I think is going to be quite interesting. And also being able to edit and create my own Lottie animations. Anyway, thanks for listening. And over to Jim and me live, because I'm recorded at the moment, to answer your questions.
Wow, great. Thank you so much, Ian, for that session.
That's okay.
So much
It
fun.
went well. Yeah, let me just...
I am a huge... I was messaging Ian. I love the Klingon font. I'm a huge font nerd. I love crazy fonts that I would never have any reason ever to use. And my computer is so slow to open up the font dialog because there's all these fonts in there that I don't use anywhere, but they make me happy. So
yeah, well, look, I'm a bit dark. I'm going to turn my light on. Hang on, there you go. Oh, glares off the top of my head. So a lot of questions, a lot of people asking things. So it's been very good. What I didn't realize were how many people are actually already using Skia and saying it's a very stable and very useful library. So pretty cool.
yes, it's great. I've been in lots of contact with the developers, and they're doing great work, and trying to figure out what I can do to help them do better.
Yeah, I've been in touch with them too, and I'm going to give them a name call as well. Now I'm going to try and say his name, and I'm sure if you know, Vinicius Felipe Botello Barbosa. So I probably mangled his name horribly, but he's one of the guys who've been in touch with me and helped me quite a lot through the demonstration. And Paulo Cesar Botello Barbosa as well. I'm assuming they're related. They've got several names in common, so maybe it's just a coincidence. But a very great guy, and both of them, I'm absolutely blown away by what they've done. The quality of the library, the Delphi components is really top whack. You know, it's good stuff.
They're brothers, actually. So.
Oh, there you go. I didn't want to suppose, you know. Yeah. So a lot of questions. Can the graphics be printed from the app? Yes, they can. Interesting enough, if I just explain how these graphics work, the way that I did it was using a render to a bitmap, which is how their demo does it. And then you can just print the bitmap, but you can also render to PDFs. They have a PDF component that's in there and does all sorts of weird things. So you can actually render to the PDF and then print the PDF, or just display it. And obviously for a web app, you know, rendering it to PDF is a good way to go. So very, very good. What else?
So there's a question if there's plans to replace the FireMonkey with Skia for Delphi. So it's something there is, unfortunately, as I've discovered since coming to Embarcadero, things are never as simple as they appear from the outside. And there are a number of trade-offs that are made in FireMonkey for certain things. And so while they're looking at Skia, and I've actually had meetings with the Skia for Delphi team as well, there's not any immediate plans to wholesale swap it out because other things would go away, like the theming and styles and stuff like that are attached to the way it works. So it's possible some of this technology may be leveraged in the future. They're always looking at how to make things better, but it's not just as simple as flipping a switch and switching it out. Now, what I love is the fact that the Skia for Delphi library is available, and you could be like, hey, I want to do this, like Ian did here, and I want to take advantage of all this, and you can then use those components and do great stuff in that situation. In other situations, use different components. So it's great that it's available, and but I don't know that we're going to see it wholesale swap it out. Yeah, I don't know about font rendering. It's something they're working on, Ken, but I don't know that I don't expect it's going to be a wholesale swap out. But it is something that, like I said, product management has met with Skia for Delphi, and they've already the guys behind it, and they've already been looking at Skia previously for different things as well, or excuse me, on their own R&D. So who knows?
Yeah, I think I was a bit skeptical because behind the scenes look here, Jim actually said to me, hey, would you like to do this presentation on Skia? And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I looked into the library and I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. And the more I used it, the more I did things with it, I'm like, it's not just really good, it's really excellent. This is an amazing library. And just a small caveat, it does add a little DLL that you need to ship your executables. But if you do cross-platform, I think it binds that in statically, but I'm not. I would need to check that. But
yes, it is. It supports across platforms, all the devices, and it does have options for linking it in versus separate, depending on the platform. There's different requirements and stuff. So
yeah, you can static link on iOS and Android, I think. But the someone asked what version will it work on. If you're targeting Windows, it will go as low as Delphi XE6. If you are targeting anything else, I mean anything else, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, iOS, and Android are all covered. Then you need Delphi 10.4 upwards, so 10.4.2 probably be a better choice, or of course 11 will be the way to go. But someone asked, why doesn't it do anything lower? Well, they use some of the language features that didn't get introduced into XE6, and I think there were a few other things as well. So that's why you have to have a specific version. When you use the SVG for a button, can you easily restrict the click to within the SVG bounding? I don't know. I mean, it's an image. So if you were doing FireMonkey, then you could probably drop the image and let the button parent it and do it that way. I didn't really go that far with the VCL. When you saw me click on the sound thing to mute the sound, that was actually a T shape that I was using, and I just happened to collect the on click on the T shape. So I don't know, I've sold that thing several times with Fluent UI controls that didn't really quite do what they want to do. So can you restrict the click to within the SVG bounding? I don't know, you'd have to look at that. I know they've got some other things planned. As I said, Vinicius, or I don't know, Vince, I'm going to call it Vince. He did kind of hint that they had some very amazing stuff on the way, and then said, but I can't show it before DelphiCon. I'm like, oh, okay then. Don't tell me, I don't want to know.
They've showed me a couple of things that they're working on, and it's really some great stuff. I'm really excited about it. They're working on a lot of great things.
And the quality of the code in the background, when you look into the code and how they're using it, it's incredible. Someone said to me, oh, well, how come you're not freeing any of the objects? Because you're creating lots of objects there, and then you're not freeing them in the source code. Well, the answer is they're all interfaces, and so they're interfaced objects, and you don't need to free them. That's the whole benefit of interfaces. I'm a very big fan of coding to interfaces. I'm sounding a bit like some other Delphi guys there, but interfaces are a lot of magic for some of these kind of circumstances, and that's exactly the one. And the other thing is anonymous methods. Lots of Delphi programmers never use anonymous methods, and it can make the code a little bit difficult to read sometimes. But actually, with this Skia for Delphi demo that I did, an anonymous method was really the only way of making it do something without writing lots and lots of complicated callback code and things like that. So it was a definite plus, Live long and prosper. Yes, absolutely. Of course, live long and prosper. Yeah. And also, I should call you Jim in a kind of, what's his name? Who's the guy on Star Trek? The one that was always the Scottish engineer, not Scotty. Yes,
Oh,
he was
Scotty.
Yeah, it was called James Kirk. Jim in a weird voice. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any facilities in the Skia library to merge, weld, combine, subtract, separate vector shapes? Yes, there are. Yeah.
Go check out their GitHub page and their website. They got a lot of information and some samples and stuff up there. Other thing that's cool, actually, if you use the Telegram messaging program, which I'm a big fan of, the stickers in Telegram, the new animated stickers, are based on Lottie files, and they're actually a subset of Lottie, and they actually added in Skia for Delphi the ability to load a compressed Lottie file and render it, so you can use your favorite stickers.
Yeah, I don't use Telegram that often. I was forced to use it for some project that they wanted to, I don't know, do it that way. But I understood it had stickers, a bit like all the other social platforms, and I figured it was some kind of subset. So it's good. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about this library, and I based on the positive comments, it sounds like I did it justice. So that was a good thing. If anybody knew the trials and tribulations we had, Jim, getting to this point, nothing's ever smooth on the day, is it? I don't know. It's just digging up my road.
That's one of the things about a library like this is everybody go out there. If you're at all interested, go out there and download it. Possibly you can donate to support the development and give feedback, right? If you try something and it doesn't work, give them feedback. They are actively working on it, like really actively working on it. And that really helps quite a bit if you can test it in certain use cases. And if you're like, oh, I wanted to do a feature that's not there, well, be patient. But bug reports are very helpful.
Oh, Rob Lambden, you see, he's like, if it was Jean-Luc Picard who made engage a Trekkie catchphrase, and he said it in the 24th century, not the 23rd. See, I knew someone would come along. I thought someone would say, hey, that's not proper Klingon. but no, it's because I've got the wrong century. Well, whatever. Actually, the LCARS interface I emulated was the 23rd century one. Just saying, but good luck to you. The nerd fight with Star Trek nerds. If only they knew what we get up to in our spare time.
I don't think the library does recognition of video images.
No, it's a rendering package. It doesn't do any. If you want to do that, then look at the Python for Delphi stuff, and then there's some very good Python libraries. I know it sounds weird to be recommending Python, but if you go to pythongui.org, which is actually sponsored by IDERA, they have some libraries on there that will recognize things in videos and stuff like that. And some articles on blogs.embarcadero.com. Of course, I need to mention that as well. That also talk about image recognition and video manipulation and stuff like that. So really, I mean, there's not much you can't do with Delphi and or some other combination of libraries and things like that, and people will gradually realize it and will take over again.
Yeah, honestly, if you're not familiar with Python is very similar to Delphi in that it has a huge library of like reusable bits. Like that's the thing I love about Delphi is you just drop a component, you're like, boom, I did my application. And Python's the same way. It's like import this and oh, here's your library. So with Python for Delphi, you can just take those Python libraries, import them into Delphi and use them from Delphi. And so it's great. We do need to go so I can start the next session. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you everybody for being involved. Like I said, go out to Python for Skia for Delphi and tell them thank you. Tell them you enjoyed Ian's session. Yes. And we will see you all later. Take care. Live long and prosper.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.